Hi everybody, welcome to yet another session on weathering the storm. Today we will look at celebrity Sunil Robert, who has written a book, I Will Survive, Comeback Stories of a Corporate Warrior. From his book, we will explore some of the key learnings of how we can weather the storm. So welcome Sunil Robert. To assist me in having this interview with Sunil, I have my colleague Selina. Welcome to you, Selina.
Hi.
For our viewers, I would like to take pleasure in introducing the speaker of today's session. Sunil Robert has a variety of experience in the corporate world. Right from Eureka Forbes in his younger days, he has over 22 years of experience spanning advertising, sales, corporate communications, and he worked for several companies, reputed companies both in India, UK, and the US. Currently, Sunil is heading the public relations and the communications. He's the head for the Tata Consultancy Services in the US. Currently, he operates from New Jersey and is a die-hard Hyderabadi. And so he spent the last 10 years in US and UK. In 2006, Sunil Robert won the Stevie Award, which is considered by many to be the equivalent of the Pulitzer, the corporate communications. So congratulations to you for that award and welcome. We'd like to thank you for coming over to Mahendra Satyam, and to share your views on this book, I Will Survive. I'm sure the viewers would have read this book, and what we intend doing through this interaction is to bring home some of the rich takeaways from his life. And, he has gone through a lot of battling, I should say, a journey which has taken him from real poverty to, support his family of 6. And today he is overcome all those crises. So we will look at how do we take some of these learnings and apply it to our organization setup, as well as how do we together face the crisis, which is the recession in the global environment. So with these few introductory remarks, once again, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here this morning and share whatever little personal insights that I have on this topic of braving and weathering the storms, both in our personal and professional lives, and hopefully some of it would be of direct relevance and practical import and importance to you.
So Sunil, when you talk about adversity, what does it mean, and how have you overcome both in your personal life as well as professional life?
Thank you. Let me share a few thoughts on what originally, how I set out to write this book and directly answer your question on what adversity means. I think that word means many things to many people. For a young kid or a teenager, some kind of a crisis, in not being able to get some attention from the member of an opposite sex might mean adversity or some kind of a difficulty. But for professionals like us who are working in the IT industry, or for people who are going through financial upheavals, any type of situation that threatens your comfort zone is an adversity. So let's have that as a working definition, that anything that threatens your equilibrium, your stability, your comfort can be classified loosely into adversity. Now, ever since this global recession commenced, all of us are now constantly battling and saying IT industry in India is so dependent on the global economies overseas. So any upheaval there has a snowballing effect on our lives. So whether our jobs are secure, specifically in this context of this organization, whatever has transpired in the last few months, how am I as an individual going to respond to what just the global macroeconomic crisis versus my personal situation right here in this organization. So how I respond to that adversity will determine not just my contribution to the organization, but my personal success as well here. So in my opinion, I've battled many adversities ever since I was a youngster. Some of them not entirely of my choice. Given a chance, I would have run away from some of them. But having weathered those, I believe now I'm well positioned to share some practical insights as to how they can overcome it. The Chinese word for a crisis, apparently, and I just discovered that in the process of writing this book, also has a secondary meaning called opportunity. Now, you can look at life and say, why do bad things happen to me? I'm a good guy. I don't harm anyone. Why am I in the midst of this crisis? And have that attitude of a bit of denial and complaining. Or you can say, now that I'm in the midst of adversity, how do I best get out of it, get enriched, expand my avenues, and use that as an opportunity to take something out of it. So I personally believe everyone at Satyam, Mahindra Satyam, is well positioned to come through this crisis. Very few people can say, I've been there when we went through this fiery furnace, this testing times. I was there in the thick of it. I know what it is to be there, and I know how to overcome and survive. So in that sense, it will also be a test of the fiber of this organization. Each associate, each employee can look back and say, either I survived or succumbed. I think that's a pivotal choice on how everyone should look in this organization today.
Selina, you have any questions to Sunil?
Thanks, Sunil, for sharing such an insightful thought. Even as you were sharing, you reminded of this very important thing that you looked at your adversities as opportunities, yes? But in your book, this is the book Friends that Sunil Robert has written, and in this book I came across this very important phrase where you wrote, combining purpose with passion, yes? And one thing is to know that in every adversity lies an opportunity. But it's another thing to do something about that, yeah, to work on that opportunity and become what one wants to become. And in your book, you wrote how you developed from scratch, how you were nothing, and then you've become something today. So would you like to throw some light on combining purpose with passion?
Thank you. I've always found that there are two types of people who can look at a job when they are assigned a job, a particular assignment or a particular project. They can do it with a fair amount of comfort level, right? But there are a certain group of people, usually a minority, someone you can just see because they stand out from the group. They bring such energy to whatever they are doing, because the moment you look at them, you see a spark, a sort of a distinct quality that makes them stand out in the way they're doing exact same thing that the other people are when perhaps they're going through the motions. So I call that passion. And whenever I'm hiring someone for my team, for example, what is the first quality I look at them when I'm hiring someone? I look at their eyes and say, do their eyes radiate enthusiasm? Do their eyes radiate the passion that they talk about when they talk about their work? Now, you might be doing something like coding. Not exactly the most passionate profession for some folks, but can you just look back and say, I'm the best coder that walks the face of the earth? Michelangelo, the great artist, once said, no matter what job you take up, do it with such a sense of purpose and passion that angels from heaven look down and say, there goes the best street sweeper on earth. Now, even a mundane task as sweeping, he said, you should combine it with so much of passion that people can see that you are energized, you're enthusiastic, that you carry a great degree of pride in what you do. That's what I'd encourage people. Even if sometimes some of our jobs are not so glamorous, not so high visible, they are in the back end, but I'd tell them, if you want to leave your signature on your work, you have to carry passion in what you do. In your chosen area, can you become a guru? Can you become a subject matter expert that your entire peers would look and say, on this particular topic, he is second to none? If that's the level of pride an achievement that you can rise to in that area, then you're combining a lot of passion to what you're doing. Now, it's not always easy to put that kind of a passion, because some of our jobs in a given day, only 2 might be passionate, invoking passion, but there might be 8 other things that are just mundane. How do you transfer that energy from 2 to the entire 10? I think a whole lot of it would come from orienting yourself consciously to say that when I either leave this project or move to something else, what is the legacy that I'm leaving on the team? Okay, not often young associates are trained to think like that. They'll think, okay, this project, once I'm out of it, I'm out of it. A sort of a very narrow view I would submit. What I'd encourage every associate is, when you leave a project, either on-site or right here, when you leave that project, what is the impact that your team can feel? What is the impact that your customer facing, end customer can feel as a result of your work? What is the impact that even your internal customer, some of us are on functions that don't face the external customer. We might face the internal customers. What is the impact that we have on our customers? If we can start critically looking at our work as a reflection of our personalities, I would submit that you can drive a lot of passion. You can really radiate pride in what you do, even sometimes even the most mundane of tasks.
Thank you.
To what extent your faith and belief in what you do adds to the passion?
I would venture to say 100%, simply because if you don't think what you're doing is significant, then you can't really bootstrap yourself. If you think it's just one of those 100 insignificant things, then you're not necessarily changing the world. Every task you look at, every assignment you do has to indirectly convey the fact that you are out to change your world. That changing the world paradigm is very important. When I wrote this book, for example, I could have just cynically succumbed to many people who said, just another story. But I would like to believe that through my book, or even to my work that I do on a day-to-day basis, I am changing the world. I am living for something on a day-to-day basis. So if you don't believe that you're changing the world, then you're looking at it as a very mundane day-to-day activity. I often quote in my public speaking engagements a story of 3 construction workers at a construction site. Somebody passerby asked them, "What are you doing?" The first guy said, "I'm laying bricks." The second guy said, "I'm building a wall." And the third person said, "I'm building a temple." Now, all 3 of them are doing the same task, whereas each of them had a different perspective. One was looking at a brick, one was looking at a wall, and the other one was looking at a much larger than life end product in mind. So I would look at the associates and say, look at your work and ask yourself, are you building a temple? Are you building a fine piece of work that you can take immense pride in? So that, I think, is the answer to your question.
So Sunil, you love public speaking, and therefore eventually you made a career out of it. To what extent love for one's strength, the ability to utilize one's own talent, to enjoy what you're doing and not working? I think it's very, very important for us to enjoy what we are doing. So we say whether you are playing at work or working at play. So I think that is very, very important, because today a lot of us choose our careers sometimes by chance. We don't look at what we enjoy doing. And I think once we enjoy what we are doing, I think there's a lot of passion automatically comes, right?
Sure. The IT industry in India is very young, Abhi. I feel many of us who are in the Indian IT industry are so blessed with opportunity that if you're stuck in a role that you're not passionate about, if you can make a persuasive case to your boss or super boss or whomever, and if you have enough credibility on which to make your case, then you'll really get moved to a role that you really passionately want. Now, I studied electronics and communications engineering, and like I said in my book, I hated electronics. Now, it's a great field for many people, but it was not for me. So I had to quickly move to a passion area where I could really live my passion. It was long, it was arduous. I had to endure many years of electronics engineering, but once I did, it was not work at all anymore. So I think you have to be brutally honest with yourself and ask yourself, do I enjoy what I am doing right now, or my dream job is elsewhere? If it could be within your organization in a different department, it could mean some training and retraining. It could mean that you take 2 steps backward in order to move 3 steps ahead. So some hard choices have to be made, but only you can make that choice. So if you're stuck today and you're frustrated with some kind of a boring, mundane kind of a job, then you and your supervisor have to really work together and arrive at your dream job. And only that way will you do justice to your own calling, live your dream, and then make a difference to Mahindra Satyan. Otherwise, you are just underperforming, and as a result, it impacts the organization performance, and as a result, the whole. And if just imagine 10 people do that, what a criminal loss of productivity and time. So ask yourself this hard question: am I working on my dream job, or I'm still waiting for my dream call?
Thank you.
Sunil, in your book, your first few chapters of your book recorded the various tides that that beset you, particularly your childhood days. And typically they are the formative years. We get encouragement at home from parents, from siblings, And when I was reading your book, it actually struck me when I read that you were living in circumstances under which any other youth would have just given up on life, or maybe would have risen in life maybe sometime later. I want to know, what is this that you possessed within yourself? Passion, purpose, yes, we've discussed it. But what else did you possess in yourself that got to just rise up, take responsibility, get going, and not just dragging your feet on life, but reaching levels, So would you like to throw some light on that and encourage us today? We're rising up, we're trying to build our organization, and we want you to help us with some tips that can help us become where we want to be.
Sure. The first thing that strikes me when you ask that question, Selina, is the fact that, I think in retrospect it may sound easy. In retrospect, my story somehow seems to have a fairly happy sort of conclusion, although I'd like to believe I have some more milestones to cross and some more mountains to climb. But the first thing that struck me was, you have to be adaptable. Now, you can talk till your voice goes dry about passion and purpose, but if you're waiting for the next dream job somewhere along the bends, you're losing time now. What do you do today? What do you do in the here and the now is quite crucial to not just the organizational success, but to even your success as a professional. You have to be adaptable. Now, in a turbulent environment like your organization is today, how each individual adapts is a very crucial component of not just the personal success, but even the organizational success as well. So if the associates who are watching this program are constantly under frustration or under anxiety, then the first suggestion I would like to give them is, what is it that you can do while adapting to the changing times around? What are the few other things that you can add to your job role and enrich yourself by taking on additional responsibilities? Or even if it means that you rise to a different level of leadership by taking other people and enlisting other teams and working across teams and working. And somehow in organizations, we are often limited by the structures we put in the organization in terms of teams and departments and so on. So initiative is the second suggestion I'd like to give. What initiative can you take by cross-pollinating ideas across teams? Can you think of some measure right now that is staring at you and nobody's doing anything about it? So if you take that as a passion thing, you're enhancing yourself as a leader. I did in my personal life, right from my teenage years, I think I extended myself. One of the key success strategies that helped me in retrospect, I didn't know that I was extending myself then, but in retrospect, that seems to be the best name that I could give. I always tried to serve beyond my means. If I was myself a turbulent, disturbed youngster, that didn't stop me from going and helping in a suicide prevention center. I just said, if I went through struggles and I want to help others, in the process of helping them, my emotional apparatus became strong. And because I knew what it is to be on the verge of suicide, I know what it is to be almost facing a life of crime, because I was a very rebellious young man. So when young people walked into the suicide center, I was able to immediately relate to their problems. So because of the situation that this organization is in, everyone can stand up and be a leader. And leaders don't often come from the organizational hierarchies. People just show leadership, show initiative, they do something out of the box, they do something which is not expected of them, and everybody takes notice of them. So that's what I'd like to encourage Satyamites to do today. What is it that you can do to adapt to the changing times? Either you can sit with your folded arms and just wait for things to settle down, or show leadership and say, hey, let's embrace change that is coming around. We can treat change as something that we are all anxious of, or we can treat change as something that we can embrace and just rise to this occasion. So two quick thoughts to recap whatever I just said. You have to really adapt to the situation. And the second one is show a lot of initiative. Initiative never killed anyone. I mean, in my book, I talked about how there are no traffic jams on the extra mile. You have to go the extra mile. If the client is expecting you to work X amount of time, just try and overachieve that. If someone is expecting you to only achieve a certain amount of goals, try and overachieve that. And in the process, what you're doing is you're surprising yourself. You will not know of reservoirs of energy that didn't exist because you never stretched yourself that far. So I'd urge people to just go for the overkill and just serve beyond your means, and then you'll be amazed at what levels of leadership, what levels of initiative, what levels of adaptability that you have within you. So go ahead, surprise yourself.
So while writing this book, Sunil, I think you have to relive some of those incidents which are not very happy. So how did you manage that? And what did you discover in yourself while writing this book?
It's a great question, simply because I think anyone who battled with the kind of pain that I went through in my younger days, in my childhood, some of the memories that came back painfully and vividly really didn't let me rest for many days. I recall a particular time where for 3 consecutive nights I could not sleep, simply because of the churn of emotions in my mind, in my heart. And one particular night I even had to take a sleeping pill to just get some rest, because during the day I was doing my day job, and I have a day job and I'm not a full-time writer. So I was struggling with a lot of these churning and painful memories. But the flip side was, in the process of rewriting and documenting whatever happened in my past entire life, I was struck by these marvelous patterns that emerged. You know, whenever pain happens, we deny it initially, we overcome it later, and then we bury it somewhere in the deep recesses of our heart. When we go back and review it and replay it, just like you watch a cricket replay from multiple angles, you'll be surprised at the insights that I got about myself, about our family, about my friends, my faith, how remarkably our entire family survived. I mean, I come across as one big hero in the book, but if you really look at it, my entire family was the central character of the book. So in that sense, my respect towards my mom just grew that much manifold. I mean, there were so many thank you calls I had to make and so many thank you cards I had to write as a result of writing this book, because some of them didn't even know that they had helped me. Some friends who helped me along the way didn't even know that they silently invested in my life. And I went back to them and I said, look, do you remember this particular incident where you helped me and that turned out to be a pivotal point in my life? They said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But gratefulness is a big byproduct of this book. I'm immensely grateful today for just to be able to come to this great organization and share some experiences, simply because of the pain that I went through and how I survived And today, and I'm using that as a sort of a goal to help others to survive too. It's not so much a chest thumping book. I'd urge every associate to look at it. Just Google me up and find some stuff about me. Even if you don't get to read the book, fine. But I'd like you to look at yourself and say, if he could do it, then if I'm blessed with more opportunities, how much more should I be achieving, extending myself, and serving my organization? My success came because I lived faithfully to my calling to all the organizations that I worked for. So if you really want to be successful in your life, your enrichment, your satisfaction comes from being just that overachiever at work. It defines a large portion of your success. So give it your very best.
So before Selina asks the next question, viewers, if you have any questions to Sunil, Robert, please send in your queries to planet_satyam@satyam.com. I again repeat, planet_satyam@satyam.com. Over to Selina.
Sunil, you were talking about the gratitude calls and the thank you letters that you wrote to your mom and to your friends. And this actually rang a bell in my mind. Again, it took me to the book in which you kept talking about, almost every page makes mention of a friend. Yes? And toward the end of the book, when I came, I didn't read the book cover by cover, but then pretty much as I skimmed through the book, I saw that every page had something about a friend, and actually it actually attracted my attention to read that little piece. But what really surprised me, or rather shocked me, is how you have so many friends. And in all those debriefs you said, build a network, make friends, keep in touch, all that stuff. Now the question to you, Sunil, is how do you manage to build this network? And secondly, you hold a responsible job. So how do you maintain the network? And then you've already realized that this network has stood you great stead. So give us some ideas on the need for building a network and maintain, some tips to maintain it.
Sure. I was part of the old school in the sense that I didn't have LinkedIn and Facebook and Orkut when I was growing up. We had this old-fashioned schoolboy network and friends because of my wide range of interests, right from cricket to radio to public speaking to journalism. I had pockets of friends all over the Twin Cities, so to speak. And the Twin Cities has given me so much. I mean, the reason I'm a diehard Hyderabadi is because I owe every ounce of my success to this city. I look back and I look at networks of pockets of friends all over the Twin Cities, and they were the one. It's like iron sharpens iron. I mean, if you are a professional and you want to sharpen your skills, you have to be rubbing shoulders and being pitted against, being challenged and stretched by other professionals. So the first advice I'd give to Satyamites is, are you part of many professional networks? If you are in quality, for example, do you have membership in all the quality associations, both national, international, and even locally? If not, then you should be taking leadership roles in them. Your networks will determine how much you're learning, how much you're constantly finding the latest trends in your industry, and so on and so forth. So my learning didn't come so much through books as much as I'm a book lover, and I love to keep abreast of what's happening in the management world, in the communications world. But my learning happens primarily through people. So if you're a people's person, then that's easy for you. You just go and build networks. But unfortunately, not everyone is a people's person. There are many shy people who find it difficult to come out of their shell. So how do you, if you're an introvert, reticent person, how do you find networks? How do you build networks? And therein lies the challenge. Not every network is chest thumping, shoulder slapping kind of a network. I think there are networks for even people who are very inward looking and not so gregarious. So irrespective of what your personality style is, I personally believe you have to belong to many, many networks. If you're not going out there and are in circulation, you lose currency. If you're not in circulation, you lose currency. I mean, I can vouch for it. All my professional growth happened because I was in many networks. But more importantly, you should look at people as genuine, valuable people. You can't. The term network has a very electronic very impersonal touch to it. I'd like to look at them as sets of friendships. My friendships enrich my life. Therefore, I take efforts to, just like I would take efforts to, nurture my garden. I mean, if someone likes gardening, then they constantly fertilize it, they pour water, they treat it just like they treat little children. So I personally encourage everyone to just go out there and build the best set of friendships that you can ever build. Start giving in, start taking voluntary roles. Like I said, I was a teenage suicide counselor when I was barely finished my teens and entered 20. So what can a 20-year-old offer in terms of counseling and advice? But I was there because a young person who's been through a lot of difficulties can obviously help another young person. So find voluntary causes, go and serve others. I mean, we in Indian IT were at least so gifted till the recession hit. We now, of course, have a lot of other challenges as well. But there are a lot more underprivileged people around us. We need to start enlisting in voluntary causes, and it just gives you a huge boost to your own morale as well. So I can't stress enough the importance of networking. Secondly, the internet and mobile phones have made our lives so much more easy. You can always drop an SMS to someone. You can always make a call and just say, hi, how are you? Unfortunately, everyone calls when they have a need. How often do you hear of a long-lost friend simply because he or she has a need? So you know right away after you hang up the cell phone or the call, you know that they called because there's a need. Say, matlab hi hai. You should not do that. I would advise that you call and surprise people and say, hey, I called to say hi. How often do you get a call from a friend who's long lost and you say, hey, I just called to say hi, or I was in the vicinity so I dropped by? Do surprise people. I used to, when I was younger, we used to go and leave notes on people's doors and go away. Not anymore because obviously I don't live here. But the fact is, surprise people by how authentic you are, how committed you are to that friendship. And when you do that, if ever you need them, they'll bend backwards to serve you because you managed to make the relationship keep going even when the other person wasn't responsive. Just like our parents always taught us when we were young, you show respect and you care the other person. It comes back to basics as well. So actually many people are even surprised with my ability to call folks in Hyderabad, although I'm based in New Jersey. If it's for a birthday or if it's for a holiday, if it's just call people and let them know how you're doing or how they're doing, and then just keep that warmth going. You need to keep relationships warm. So that's the advice I'd like to share with Satyamites today.
Sunil, you had mentioned in your book that while you were studying, you were trying to convince the university authorities to permit you to do, the program in MBA. I don't know how you manage that, especially from the academics. People who are very, very process-driven. People are getting scared to deviate from the process. So, to what extent your communication abilities had this impact?
I would say communication skills and relationship skills were only 50%, I would say. But the other 50% was desperation. I had no other choice but to finish my MBA because the girl I was in love with said, if you have an MBA, then my parents will find it easy to offer their hand in marriage. So I was desperately in love with this girl and I wanted to marry her. So, every desperation has a driver, so to speak. So I personally believe that the key aspect was I was desperate. I was hungry for success. And I was really, I had no options but to survive. It's like crossing the Rubicon. If you cross the Rubicon, then you don't have any other option of going back. So when I went to these professors and I said, look, I need you to help me finish my full-time MBA, what I did was I didn't give them an option. I said, I'll do anything that you want me to do as long as you let me do it. So in that sense, I really was desperate for success. So if you're desperate, you'll achieve anything. Children teach you. The ones who nag the most, the ones who are most desperate for candy or whatever, they get it because after a lot of persistence, they wear you down, they are persistent, so you give in. So I think and I was persuasive because I was not I was not begging them, but I was making a case saying, look, even after a job, I'll have to go back and start as a management trainee and earn X amount, whereas I'm already in a job and earning more than X. So it's an economic case as well. So I convinced them and I persuaded them. So it really, fortunately, in retrospect, it turned out well. Many other doors were not open, didn't open because they were hard people, difficult people. But the two most critical points in my life, my persuasion, my relationship management, and when you are making a request with a smile, it's hard to deny a request. So it really worked.
Yeah, I think there is a very interesting question from one of our viewers. I'll read it out for the benefit of all of us. This is from Neeraj. My question is, thanks a lot for your great insights, Sunil. He has acknowledged that. My question is, walking on an entirely different road and career, after your engineering in electronics and communication, you would have attracted a lot of criticism from your friends and relatives. How do you deal with it, and how you convince them that what you are doing was not your passion, but what you loved more on to do, moved on to do was? So I'll again repeat: how did you deal with that, and how do you convince them that they were doing what was not your passion, but what you have moved on to do was?
Thank you, Neeraj, for this question. In fact, this was one question that consistently kept coming up even when I launched the book all over India. So, great question. I found that I've always been a responsible son ever since my family went into a bit of a tailspin financially. But the first time I actually said no to a secure job, and I write about it in the book, about how after my electronics engineering, I could have taken a steady job in the railways or any other electronics industry. My mother, more than anybody, were shocked, because all along I was a fairly sane, responsible son, and suddenly I was doing this almost suicidal career move, and they had no idea why I was doing this. But I persuaded them and I said, look, if I could support you since the time I was 15, 16 by giving tuitions to younger kids, you know I'm responsible. So trust me on this count. So my past track record helped me defend my rebellious choice. I knew I was shooting myself in the foot, because if it backfired, everybody would be all over me, because the choice that I made of saying no to a fairly lucrative career path backfired. But because it turned out well, and by then I was indulging in my passion of writing for Deccan Chronicle and some newspapers in Hyderabad, I was doing live radio programming. So my parents were perturbed by that, and many other friends, but they also knew that I was not whiling away my time in Irani hotels or, going after girls, and they saw that there was a responsible side to me. So that kind of worked well for me. But you should always live by your passion. And many years later, today, my parents and everybody is immensely proud of me because it worked well. So I would answer that by saying this is how I dealt with it, by showing them the responsible side of me. And that's what I would tell anyone else who wants to rebel against popular conventional wisdom. You need to have solid reasons why you're rebelling against that reason.
So one more question from Swaminathan Mani. What's your one black swan moment? An event that was unexpected, very rare, had a huge impact, and was retrospectively explainable. One aha moment.
That's a great question. If the earlier question was a black sheep question, this is a black swan moment. So thanks, Swami, for that question. I personally believe one of my earliest memories was I always got into trouble in school for not being able to focus in the class, or for being disciplined in school. I always was a troublemaker. I was always the mischievous kid. But the only thing that I would redeem myself in school was in memory and recitation and competitions that allowed me to indulge in public speaking. So the first ever competition that I won was an inter-school competition, and it gave me a huge huge rush. The adrenaline was amazing. I mean, it was nice to, be congratulated by all these beautiful girls from the other competing schools and stuff. So that was my first black swan moment where I discovered that my calling was in communications. And today, after 22 years of other corporate experiences, various forms of public speaking and international opportunities, I can look back to that inter-school competition when I was a kid and say that is my black swan moment.
That is nice. Good to hear that. Good to hear your black sheep and your black swan moments. And very nice to learn that even while you were young, whether you realized it or no, you were actually leveraging on your skills and talents. Yeah, and that's really nice. I have another question for you, Sunil, and that is, how do you make time, or rather, bring about work-life balance? All of us here in corporate, we come to work in the morning at 9. For that, we've got to get ready from 8 onwards. By the time we go home in the evening, it's 7:38. And we have another life waiting for us. It's not like the day is over. Yeah? So, and you're involved in so many things. I read in the book that you're involved in a Toastmasters club. You're involved in various networks, as you said some time back. Plus, you have a job and you have family. So, how do you make time for everything?
I think it's a great question. In fact, some people have asked me, how did you actually even write a book while you're having a day job, and that too in a competitive IT company to boot? The answer I find is when you have passion to do something, you definitely find avenues to express it, whether it is speaking, whether it is preaching, which I'm involved in my local church, or family where I support my son, and I'm on the PTA of a school where my son goes in New Jersey. The key thing is, I think you've got to have goals. You need to have goals that will encompass your family. You need to have goals that will encompass your career. You need to have goals that will encompass your avocations and passions and desires. So if you have goals, then you're constantly tracking your goals. In my case, that was a fairly simple model. The last 7-8 years, I've been setting goals for myself, my personal growth, my financial growth, my professional growth, and I also include goals for my family, my spouse. How can I support her in her professional dreams and desires? How can I support my son? If you have a young family, then you also have to play the role of a leader in the family. So if you don't have goals, then getting that balance will become difficult. Because in India, I know time just flies away. You have no idea where your time has gone when you look back at a week that went by, or a month, or a quarter that went by. So goals are very crucial for success in every sphere. So I'm happy to spend more time on this, but really the last 7-8 years, ever since I found the importance of setting goals and going after them and achieving them, it really helped me achieve a lot. For example, in this book, I wanted to achieve this goal of writing a book and becoming an author by the time I turned 40. And I'm not going to tell you whether I achieved that goal or not, because then you'll know my real age. But that was a goal that I had written myself, and I was not going to let anything come in the way till I achieved that goal. Likewise, the number of vacations that you want to spend, take your time out with your families. And because it's school-going kids are involved, you need to plan much ahead, and so your life needs to be very well thought out, and you can't do ad hoc, random stuff. Fortunately, I'm now based in the United States, which allows you a lot more flexibility when it comes to managing your off-work hours. But the flip side is I still work for an Indian company. So in that sense, even I have some of those pressures of taking calls very early in the morning and joining calls very late at night. But that's where your ability to be adaptable, your ability to show leadership in creative ways really comes to the fore. So I hope this goal setting will really help you determine the balance that you desperately need.
Sunil, this is the book which you have written is really inspiring. But when I read that book, I wondered why you have titled the book as I Will Survive rather than I Survived.
Well, it's an unfolding story, Abhi, and I felt that my battles are not yet over. I still continue to be a part of the corporate world, And I hope I will survive the battles ahead. And in fact, I wanted to go ahead and say I will succeed, but there was a sense of grandioseness to it. There was a sense of grandeur to it. So I just said I will survive.
So on that happy note, I would like to thank all our viewers. If you still have any queries to Sunil, you can kindly make a note of his email ID, sunil.robert@gmail.com, sunil.robert@gmail.com, and he also has a website, www.sunilrobert.com. I'll again repeat, www.sunilrobert.com. I would like to thank you, Sunil, for sharing the wonderful insights, and thank you, Selina, for the wonderful questions, and thank you, viewers, for participating in this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.